Welcome to Adhvaitha, and in this video we are looking at the profound teachings of Mandukya Upanishad. The Mandukya Upanishad is not only one among the important Upanishads, but it is also considered as the most important Upanishad by many. And it is said that Mandukyam ekameva alam mumukshunam vimuktaye, which translates to for the liberation or the self-realization of the seeker. The Mandukya Upanishad alone is sufficient and is capable. So if you truly seek to understand the nature of reality and if you truly seek self-realization, it is said that Mandukya Upanishad alone is sufficient and capable to take you there. And by the end of this video, I will try to give the essential teaching and the overall meaning of the Mandukya Upanishad. Now in this video, we will not be going into the Sanskrit verses, their intricacies, etc. So we will be looking at the English translation, and through that we will be understanding the essential teaching of this Upanishad. And the first verse goes like this: Hari Om. The whole universe is the syllable Om. Following is the exposition of Om. Everything that was, is or will be is in truth Om. All else which transcends time, space and causation is also Om. So this verse is talking about the significance of Om. Om points towards a fundamental reality and it points towards consciousness or awareness. Om is considered as the primordial sound in many religions, including Hinduism and Buddhism. If you break up the syllable Om, you get three parts: A, U and Ma. And even if we look at the way language is structured and how sounds work, these three syllables are fundamental for any sound. A baby, when it is born, even though it does not know how to speak, it can make the sound A, U and Ma. And even a mute person who cannot speak can make the sound A, U and Ma, because these three are primordial sounds. And Om is the fundamental sound and is the consciousness from which this universe emerges. Now let's look at the second verse. All of this everywhere is in truth Brahman, the absolute reality. This very self itself, which is Atman, is also Brahman. This Atman or self has four aspects through which it operates. Now the second verse goes on to explain the significance of Om and what it denotes, and it talks about the self. What this verse is telling us is that all of this, what we see all around us, is Brahman. Brahman in Vedanta denotes God or pure consciousness. And it goes on to say this very self, which is me, is also that pure consciousness or God. It is basically telling us that the self is one with God. And it goes on to say this Atman or self has four aspects through which it operates, which we will look at in the third verse. From the third verse, the Mandukya Upanishad talks about the various aspects of this self, which refers to me and you. Now the third verse says, first is waking, the gross state. The first aspect of Atman is the self in the waking state, Vaishnavanara. In this state, consciousness is tuned outward to the external world. Through its 7 instruments and 19 channels, it experiences the gross objects of the phenomenal world. So here the Upanishad is talking about our waking state, which is the state in which me and you are in right now. Now you're watching this video, you are in the waking state in consciousness. You are awake and you are having different experiences with the outer world and you are interacting with the world. This is the waking state in consciousness, and the Upanishad is describing how that self, which is the pure consciousness, has assumed the identity of the waker and is experiencing the world outside of him. Here the verse is talking about 7 instruments and 19 channels. So when the Upanishad says the 7 instruments, it's talking about the sun and the heavens and the 5 elements. The 5 elements of space, air, fire, water and earth. So the entire universe that we see all around us is fundamentally made up of these 5 elements, and we are using these 5 elements to interact with the world. So this is mentioned. And when the Upanishad says 19 channels, it refers to the 4 functions or aspects of mind which is Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara and Chitta, which is your memory, your intellect, your identity or ego, and your reflected consciousness or filtered consciousness that we use to operate as human beings. And it also includes Pancha Vayus. There are 5 airs within our system which actually is taking care of different aspects of the body like breathing, etc., which is also necessary for us to be alive and to interact with the world outside of us. So this is included, and it also includes the 5 active senses or indriyas, which are the organs of eliminating, procreating, moving, grasping and speaking. And it also includes the 5 cognitive senses, which are the organs of smelling, tasting, seeing, touching and hearing. So all of these things, we don't have to go into the details of it, but what this verse is telling is that these are all the different instruments: smelling, tasting, touching, movement. All of these are different ways, and these are different instruments which we use to interact with the world outside of us in the waking state. This is what this verse is talking about. Now let's look at the next verse, which talks about the second aspect of the self, which is the dreaming state, which is Tejasa. In the second state, consciousness is turned towards the inner world. It also operates through 7 instruments and 19 channels which engage the subtle objects of the mental realm. This verse is talking about the dream state. So we all dream different dreams when we go to sleep. And if you actually think about it, there is a lot of similarities between the waking state and the dream state. So all these 7 limbs and the 19 mouths that the Upanishad is talking about will be active in the dream state also. Because let's say within the dream you are walking through a forest and you are trekking and you are having different experiences. So the same organs of sense perceptions and the organs of action and the 5 elements are all active within the dream. But you are not engaged in the world outside of you. Instead, you are focused inward and you are having an experience inward. So this is the dream state in consciousness. The third aspect of Atman is the self operating in the deep sleep state, Prajna. In this third state, there is neither the desire for any gross or subtle object nor any dream sequences. In deep sleep, all such experiences have receded or merged into the ground of undifferentiated consciousness. Here one is filled with the experience of bliss and can also find the way to clearer knowledge of the 2 preceding states. Here the Upanishad is talking about the deep sleep state. This is also very familiar to all of us. We all go through these 3 states in consciousness. First, during the day we are awake, we have our professions, we all have different activities that we perform during the waking state. Then we go and sleep at night and we dream different dreams. And within the dreams, we interact with the dream world and we have different experiences, we talk to different people and a lot of things happen within the dream. And then at a certain point, we go into something called as the deep sleep state, where all the experiences subside, where there is no object of experience, but there is still something very subtle which is actually experiencing the absence of any experience or any object. This is the deep sleep state. We all go through this, and this deep sleep is what many of us crave because it gives a certain energy to the system. Now this verse is talking about the deep sleep state. Coming to the next verse, which is the 6th verse, this verse is about finding the experiencer. The one who experiences all of these states of consciousness is the omniscient, indwelling source and director of all. This one is the womb out of which all of the other emerges. All things originate from and dissolve back into this source. Now this verse is talking about a 4th aspect, which is not a state in consciousness, but consciousness itself. If you think about this deeply, you will start to understand what the Upanishad is trying to tell us. We all go through different states of in consciousness like we discussed earlier, which is the waking state and the dream state and the deep sleep state. Within our dreams, we experience different dreams as a dreamer. We talk to different people and we experience different experiences, and then we wake up and we again as a waker experience the different things around us, we talk to different people, and go through various things in the waking state. Now what this verse is trying to tell us is that it is asking us to look at our own experiences in these three states of consciousness, which is the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state, and to find out what is common between these states. Of course, the experiences are different, and what is happening in each state is different, and the parameters with which the dream world works is totally different from the waking world. But there is something which is common to all these three states. You yourself, which is the pure consciousness or awareness, is common between all three states, because you are witnessing the waking state as the waker, you are witnessing the dream state as the dreamer, and you are witnessing the deep sleep state as a blankness or as an absence of experience. So all of these three things are happening to you, but you are untouched by them, and you are that pure consciousness, and you are the witness, and you are from which this entire universe has come from, and you are in which the entire universe will subside in. This is what this verse is telling us. Now let's look at the 7th verse. This says the fourth aspect of Atman or self is Turiya, literally the fourth. In the fourth state, consciousness is neither turned outward nor inward, nor is it both outward and inward. It is beyond both cognition and the absence of cognition. The fourth state of Turiya cannot be experienced through the senses or known by comparison, deductive reasoning, or inference. It is incomprehensible and unthinkable with the mind. This is pure consciousness itself. This is the real self. It is within the cessation of all phenomena. It is serene, tranquil, filled with bliss, and is one without the second. This is the real or true self that is to be realized. So this is a very profound verse, and this literally means what it says. So it is telling that that which is consciousness, which is truly you, is indescribable, unquantifiable. It cannot be talked about, it cannot be explained, it cannot be experienced by the organs or the senses, it cannot be grasped by the mind. So it is beyond all that. You think about this. What can be a thing which can be undescribable, unthinkable, ununderstandable, which cannot be perceived by the senses, which is all pervading, which is absolute? What can be such a thing? It is you yourself. You yourself are the pure consciousness, which is unthinkable and ununderstandable, because you cannot understand yourself, you cannot think about yourself. It's because the self is the very thing which it is trying to understand. So it is beyond understanding, because it is not an object which can be understood. Instead, it is the subject which is trying to understand. This is what the Upanishad is telling us. Now let's look at the 8th verse. Though described as having 4 states, is indivisible. It is pure consciousness itself. That consciousness is Om. The 3 sounds A, U and Ma, and the 3 letters A, U and M are identical with the 3 states of waking, dreaming and sleeping. And these 3 states are identical with the 3 sounds and letters. The 4th state, Turiya, is to be realized only in the silence behind or beyond the other 3. Now, this verse is equating the 3 states of consciousness to the 3 syllables of Om. It is equating waking state with A, it is equating the dream state with U, and it is equating the deep sleep state with Ma. And through this, Upanishad is telling us that the syllable Om within itself contains the symbolic meaning and the essential aspect of this entire existence. So the entire world all around us and our entire experience can be put into these 3 categories, right? The waking state, the dream state and the deep sleep state. And this is equated to Om. And this verse also tells us that the silence which comes after Om, which is also present as a background within Om, is pure consciousness. It is the self. It is Turiya, and it is fundamental to all the other 3 syllables, and it is fundamental to all the 3 states of consciousness. Now coming to the 9th verse, the sound A is waking or gross. Vaishnavanara is the consciousness experienced during the waking state and is A, the first letter of Om. that simple sound of A is first and permeates all other sounds. One who is aware of this first level of reality has fulfillment of all longings and is successful. So here what the Upanishad is trying to tell us is that we can realize the essence of this world and the essence of consciousness in the waking state. The waking state in which we are in which you are watching this video, is very important, because this is the only state through which we can attain the absolute and we can be self-realized. In all the other states, we are unconscious. In the waking state, we have the ability to be conscious and realize the self. And this waking state is associated with the syllable A of Om. And this verse says that this first syllable permeates all other sounds. Now the 10th verse talks about the syllable U, which is the dreaming state. And this is associated with U, which is the second letter of Om. This intermediate state operates between the waking and sleeping states, reflecting some qualities of the two. One who knows this subtler state is superior to others, for one who knows this knows Brahman, the absolute reality. Now here again the Upanishad is associating the syllable U with the dream state of consciousness. So the dream state of consciousness is called as Taijasa. And this verse says that one who knows this subtler state is superior to others. The one who knows, who truly knows what this state is superior, is what this verse is telling. Now let's look at the 11th verse, which is the sound Ma is deep sleep. Prajna is the consciousness experienced during the state of dreamless deep sleep, and Ma, the third letter of Om, contains the other two and is that from which other two emerge and into which they merge. A knower of this more subtle state can understand all within himself. Now this verse again is equating the third state of consciousness, Prajna, to Ma, which is the third syllable of Om, and it is telling us that the one who knows this state for what it is also knows the reality for what it is. Once we realize consciousness is fundamental and that which is common to all these three states, we will realize each state for what it is. Now coming to the 12th verse, the silence after Om is the true self. The fourth aspect is the soundless aspect of Om. It is unutterable and is not comprehended through the senses or by the mind. With the cessation of all phenomena, even of bliss, this soundless aspect becomes known. It is a state of non-dual, Adhvaitha, one without a second. This fourth state, Turiya, is the real self or true self. One with direct experience of this expands to universal consciousness. Now what this verse is telling us is that it is again reinforcing to us the importance or the fundamentalness of the consciousness and the self, and is telling us that the silence which comes after Om is also the silence which is in and through the Om, and this silence can be equated to the self or consciousness, and this consciousness itself is fundamental to the other three states, which are just the states of consciousness or the states in consciousness. That which experiences the waking state as the waker, that which experiences the dream state as the dreamer, and that which experiences the blankness as the deep sleeper is the self, which is you or me. And this is pure consciousness, and one who realizes who he truly is, he attains the ultimate. This is what the verse is talking about. We also can understand it in this way. The awareness or consciousness is in and through all the three states of consciousness. So whatever happens in your waking state will happen in your awareness, and whatever happens in the dream state also happens in your awareness. And in the deep sleep state, even though nothing happens as such, but still you are aware of the blankness, or we can say there is a subtle someone who is experiencing the absence of experience. So this someone is you. This is who you truly are. This is your true self, and this is pure consciousness. And if you realize this, you are said to be self-realized. This is what Mandukya Upanishad tells us. Now let us understand this with a simple example. Let us take the example of the clay and the pot. If you take the example of the clay and the pot, clay is fundamental to the existence of the pot. even if the pot breaks down, clay will still remain. Now the clay itself can be modified in different ways. The clay can be a pot, it can also be a plate, it can also be a small cup. If the pot is the waker who is experiencing the waking world all around him, and if the plate is the dreamer who is experiencing the dream world, and if the cup is the deep sleeper who is experiencing the absence of experience, then the pure awareness or consciousness is clay, which is actually responsible for all these three objects and which is the fundamental reality which is evident in and through all these three objects. This is how we can look at the teachings of Mandukya Upanishad. That which is consciousness or awareness is truly us, and we as a waker and a dreamer and a deep sleeper are not truly who we are, but instead they are just the roles that we assume during those states of consciousness. Now with this, let us conclude this video. Before we go, I would like to tell you that we have created a community and learning platform which we call as the Adhvaitha Conscious Society, where one can go through in-depth videos to understand the nature of reality. If you are interested to join the platform, you can visit adhvaitha.com. The link will be given in the description. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.